What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the A24 Archive. This is the segment on my channel where I go back through A24's entire catalog from the first film they released all the way till whenever I get caught up. And the film I'm going to be discussing today, I'd actually never heard of before. Every now and again throughout this entire series, I believe this is like my 62nd film I've watched in A24's catalog in a row. I find one that I hadn't really heard anything about or seen a trailer for upon its initial release. And this movie stars the late, great Burt Reynolds. And this movie clearly doesn't parallel his experience 100%, but there's obviously elements to his life incorporated. And I believe this is one of the last films he did before he passed away. And so I was really interested to see it solely for that reason, because I think Burt Reynolds was incredibly talented. And I was interested to check it out. And the movie I'm going to be discussing with you today is The Last Movie Star. The Last Movie Star is directed by Adam Rifkin. An aging screen icon gets lured into accepting an award at a rinky-dink film festival in Nashville, Tennessee, sending him on a hilarious fish-out-of-water adventure and an unexpectedly poignant journey into his past. So, as I said, didn't know much about this movie before I went in to watch it, other than it starred Burt Reynolds. Hadn't seen a trailer for it, and this movie is terrible. This is honestly one of the bottom tier A24 movies I've watched. It's not like unwatchable or anything. It's just really bad. And honestly, with Burt Reynolds being the legend that he was, seeing this as like one of his send-off films was kind of depressing. Like I'm kind of shocked that this is the movie that he chose to be a part of. Not only because outside of him, who does give a really solid performance, the rest of the performances in the movie are terrible. The movie doesn't look good. There's like these scenes where he's like talking to his older version of himself where they like superimpose him into clips of his old movies, and it looks really corny. Like the entire movie just feels like a made for TV film, and it comes across as really like Hallmark hokey in a way that's not endearing or authentic in any way. And I'll break that down when I talk about the film as a whole. So at the beginning of the film, we're introduced to Vic Edwards, played by Burt Reynolds, who we actually see is taking his elderly dog to the vet, and he finds out that he has to put his dog down, which is an interesting way to open your movie, considering thematically what the film is trying to explore. And so he goes back to his house. You can tell he's genuinely distraught, and he has this note from this film festival in Nashville, and he talks to his buddy, played by Chevy Chase, who's like, hey, you should go accept it. You know, all the greats did it. Robert De Niro, all those guys, they go and accept their awards. And he's like, Nashville's not really a big film town, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, ignore that, just go. So he reluctantly agrees, and he flies to Nashville, and he's greeted by Lil, played by Ariel Winter, who is there to pick him up and take him to the film festival. And he thinks he's going to be getting this like limo and put up in a hotel, but she comes in her crappy car, takes him to a super cheap motel, and he finds out that this film festival is at a dingy bar. They're not even showing it on like a real screen. It's like projected on a wall, and he gets drunk and incredibly flustered and actually ends up getting into a fight with the guy who's in charge of the film festival. And the next day he is supposed to get up and go to the film festival, but instead of that, Lil shows up to pick him up, and he says, I don't want to go there, take me back to my hometown. And so the two of them go on a road trip to his hometown in Tennessee, and the entire film is him reminiscing on his past, on like his former lovers and on the things that he did when he was growing up. And it's just a reflection of him looking back at better times in his life. So as I said, I thought this movie was really terrible. I thought that the forced sentimentality and the like constant conversations of just reflecting on your past, it doesn't really service a film. It's more just like, okay, we put this legendary actor in a role so that he could have these monologue sequences talking about these fictitious elements of his life that may parallel to reality, but none of them come across as authentic. And despite you looking and being like, oh, it's a story sort of about Burt Reynolds, the character is not likable, and there's nothing really interesting about him. It's like you're supposed to like him because he's Burt Reynolds, but there's nothing like authentic or endearing about his character to make you care about his journey. The performances in this movie are absolutely horrible. Outside of Burt Reynolds, who I really think does the best that he possibly can with this material, being as thin as it is, everyone else in this movie feels like they're acting for their first time. And just the dialogue is really terrible. The kid who was in Boyhood was in this, and he was downright awful. Ariel Winter, who's in a lot of the movie, there were certain scenes that she was better in than others, but there were a lot of moments that just felt like she was overacting in a really extreme way. Like, there's nothing that made this feel like a real person. It just felt like a caricature of an idea of a person, which got really frustrating. And this thing was about an hour and 50 minutes. And throughout the entirety of the film, I'm like, what justifies this being a movie? It's like, okay, this guy goes to this film festival, and then the movie just becomes him driving around the place he used to live, recollecting on things, and them trying to introduce characters from his past and people to like try to push and pull at you emotionally. But as I said, like, this isn't a movie about Burt Reynolds. It's a movie about a fictitious character that Burt Reynolds is playing that may parallel to elements he actually experienced in his life. So if you're feeling anything in this movie, it's not for the character, it's for Burt Reynolds. And so to me, it's like, I didn't really care all that much. I didn't really care about this character. He's kind of an asshole from the very start of the movie, and like, just he does like creepy old man shit like from the very beginning of the movie. So I'm like, I don't have anything to grab a hold on to. And then like Ariel Winter's character, she's in this relationship with this guy who, like, she talks to Burt Reynolds' character and says like he hits her sometimes, and she's like, but I deserve that. And like, it's a really sad situation that she like sees herself in this way, but the way that she acts and delivers her dialogue, it's just hard to like resonate with it or care about it because it's so hokey and it's so poorly done. And like I said, some of the sequences where they like superimpose Burt Reynolds into this footage of him from movies in his past were, it was just bad. Like, there wasn't anything cool about it. It didn't make me excited to keep watching the movie. I'm just like, wow, you're trying to incorporate things in here so the audience can be like, that's Burt Reynolds. I feel for him because I've known him for a long time. But like, you don't actually care about this character in any way, shape, or form. And I just felt like most of this movie was an incredible waste of time. And I would never watch this movie again. I don't plan on revisiting it. And honestly, unless you have like a soft sentimental spot for Burt Reynolds, there really is no point watching this movie because you're not going to really get anything out of it at all. So have you seen the last movie Star? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was really bad, and I do not plan on ever watching it again. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.